rich man comes up to Jesus. And he's like, Jesus, what do I have to do to get into the kingdom of heaven? And I've done all of these things. I haven't killed anybody. I've obeyed the 10 Commandments. I've lived my life as a good human being, blah, 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 blah. That's what the rich man says to Jesus. And then the next thing that takes place is Jesus thinks about this for a moment. And he was like, you know what? Sell everything you have, rich man. Give it to the poor, and then come follow me. And do this, and surely you'll inherit the kingdom of heaven. I think even Jesus says that he'll receive 100-fold as well. And so there are other scriptures that talk about if you give your belongings away, then you'll receive 10-fold or 100-fold, and some of these other things like that. That's not what I'm going to focus on today. There are enough people who try to capitalize on all kinds of things in the world. I don't want them to capitalize on the scriptures, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time thinking about that. However, what we are going to focus on is a personal story that I have, and that personal story has to do with myself and Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America. But then at the same time, this story. And so my interpretation is what comes first in this segment, this issue. And I ultimately think, feel, and believe that Jesus was specifically talking individually to the rich man in the story, not to all rich people that would ever come before or after Christ. I think and I feel this way because realistically, when you look at all the things that the rich man had said that he was doing, Jesus believed that he was doing those things and that he did do those things. But the one thing that Jesus understood right away was that this rich man needed to get rid of something in order to come into this relationship with Jesus, and then to realistically be able to gain the kingdom of heaven. And so I think individually, personally, for you and for me and for everybody else, we all have something that separates us from our relationship with God. And so when that happens and arises in our life, and I don't always think it's the same. For some people, it's always been the same. For some people, it varies. I know for mine, it used to be marijuana, and then it was cigarettes, and then sex is kind of one of those things. I don't have sex. But, lust is kind of one of those things that we all as a community and as human beings struggle with all the time. And I did an issue or like a thought on that the other day about the difference between lust and affectionate love, and the major differences between how we love one another, spouse-wise. Spousal, I think spousal is a word, spousal love. And so I haven't posted that one yet, but you can check that one out. It's only a couple of minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes. And I'll probably label that as lust over love. And so realistically, when you find these things that divide you from your relationship with God, that's what Jesus was talking about. It's the moral of the story. It's not, the moral of the story is that rich people can't ever make it into heaven. That's not the case, because Jesus would have said that if that was the case. Instead, he said it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, or something like that. And so because that's the case, it's difficult for rich people to ever get into the kingdom of heaven and to have a relationship with God, because they love their money more than they love the relationship with God. And that just that's one of those things that happens, And so if you're a rich man who's like, I love my money, then, this story's for you, because I was writing a series of letters